Welcome to the Social Podcast, where no discussion or debate is off limits.
Welcome to The Social, everybody. Today is Bell Let's Talk Day, and we are going to be dedicating the show to conversations all about mental health. And our first guest, she's the founder of advocacy group The Sad Collective. We love to welcome her to the show, Megan Young. Welcome to the show. Megan, thank you. We're going to find out more about your organization a little bit later. But first, everybody, Prince Harry is back in the news. And we know that he's been pretty open in the past about his own mental health struggles and also the trauma that he experienced having his privacy invaded by the tabloid press. Well, today, along with a significant payout, he actually received a very rare apology from Rupert Murdoch's newspaper group for years of unlawful intrusion. So some closure for him there. So do you need, Megan, we'll start with you, an apology to help with closure for some issue?
I love that the audience already knows. I will say in this case, 100%, when there's an illegal action being taken, right? And it's a massive organization with a responsibility to telling the truth and to really respecting their community that they're sharing this like really important news with, which I think, yes. But when it comes to my interpersonal relationships, and I've been in tricky situations where it's nothing's black or white. Yeah. And I wish they were. And I wish I could say to a friend or a loved one, like, you need to apologize to me, but you can't control what they're gonna say or how they're gonna react. I lean in on self-forgiveness.
Right, so you find a way to forgive them without hearing it.
And also forgiving the situation. Yeah. Like, how did I get myself in this situation? What did I do? What could I have done better?
Big of you.
And just like, well, I mean.
No, it is, but here's an analogy. You know, if you're made to wait, say, at the dentist's office or the doctor's office, 20, 30 minutes, and you're kind of like, this is my day, this is my time. And then you finally get called in and the doctor says, I'm really sorry for the wait. And you're like, oh, it was no problem. It's fine. And you immediately forget about it, like how far that apology goes. And then you take, a small potatoes of losing 30 minutes out of your day and think about something traumatic, like with a family or a friend and receiving that apology. I do think they go such a long way, not just for the person receiving the apology, but for the person giving it. It's like a baptism almost.
Does it matter at all? Like, I agree. I'm a true Canadian in that I over-apologize. Probably I apologize for everything. And I like it that way. I would rather be over-apologizing than under-apologizing. But I do wonder if there's some nuance to be found in that. Like, that how big is the infraction? How close am I to the person that I, wounded, let's say? Was the wound in some ways deserved? I mean, these are nuances that we can't get into the weeds of. But I think to go back to this story in particular, even though I'm sure he feels a relief from the apology, I guess the bigger question is, will this news organization stop doing what they were doing, right? This goes back to like how we experience, like if somebody is a frequent offender of the same type of thing, their apology doesn't mean anything after all.
Oh, you know what you just made me think of?
Yeah.
I never thought about this until you said that. That isn't Rupert Murdoch the one that was also fueling all of the fake election, those machines that were, in the 2020 election, the election was stolen, and Rupert Murdoch, he clearly doubled down on, well, do we really need facts in news? So maybe he didn't learn, and maybe this was it. And I think that bringing up Harry is interesting. Listen, we know that he lost his mother in the most horrific circumstances. I think this apology goes a long way. I think it closes a chapter for him. I think we saw him taking up the mantle of his mother's cause and avenging her death, to be very honest. I hope he gets closure and peace for this, because this is rare. They don't usually apologize. And, 8 figures doesn't hurt either for a settlement. But I just think for me, I am kind of also on team apology. Like when I think of things that have happened in my life, like there are a few people who really wronged like my family, like my father in particular. And it's like, I will never forgive you. But if you apologize and understand how much hurt you caused, I'm open to the apology, and then we can move on. Do I think about them all day and night? No, I don't think about you. I am just now, but then I'm gonna forget about you again. And the same thing with past relationships. I've talked about an ex who cheated on me. And I think I would have loved to have an apology. I would still love an apology. You know why? Because the gaslighting that he did made me doubt myself. And you know how much money I paid for therapy to fix that? I'm really angry about it. And I think apology would help me close the door once and for all.
And sending him a receipt. And here's a fun one. A writer for Scary Mummy says that for her, the grocery store feels like home because it reminds her of her childhood and running errands with her family. So we want to talk about what's a sort of unsuspecting yet comforting place that we have. And think about yours in your head. Like,
I mean, this made me think about like literally a spot in my parents' home that as a child filled myself and all my childhood friends with like dread. It's our basement. The basement was terrifying. It's unfinished. There was the occasional mouse in there. There's a lot of disarray. It's my mom's least favorite place in the home. And she's constantly, whenever we go and visit, she's like, we gotta clean this out. But I go down there and there's a very particular smell that goes along with the basement. And
a little moldy?
A little cold. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of mouse poo. I don't know what it is. And I love it. And my dad has furrowed away like all these like memories, things we certainly don't need anymore, and the occasional bag of chips that's hidden away because he doesn't want the mice to get in. Anyway,
it feeds the mice.
Hidden away.
Do you have a spot?
You have a scary basement.
Yeah. What about you, Megan?
So I had to think about this because I feel like I have a lot of spots. And actually, I talked to a friend and I loved hers too. She said the laundromat for her is her spot.
Really?
Something about the community and all doing something to the same thing, but doing it all solo. But when I thought about myself, and I love it that my parents are here right now, Scarborough, where I grew up. So I think there's something about the childhood, right?
Yeah.
Childhood. So I grew up in Scarborough. Anyone from Scarborough?
East side.
There's a corner right by my high school, which is no longer there, unfortunately, but there was this corner, and people would go to McDonald's or they would go to Burger King for lunch, but I would go to this corner and there was like mom and pop restaurants, or not even restaurants, they were just these little hole in the walls, a submarine shop, a Trini spot, and their children went to my school, so they knew us.
Yeah.
And to me, then I was thinking about it, and those places don't exist anymore, but I'll still go into that neighborhood and
you get that
for the feeling. Deep nostalgia. Deep nostalgia.
And then Scarborough spots on Instagram. That's also my era. So if you ever go and anyone from Scarborough needs to have a walk down memory lane, Scarborough spots. It's like
on Instagram. We love that.
Lovely.
Do you have a spot, Jess?
Mine's like libraries, and I think it's because the quiet, but also they're always in some of them. There's like this white noise. It's almost like a hum. It's also the smell of the old books, and I must confess, it's also because every time I go into a big old library, I have to go number 2. And apparently, I'm not the only one. It's a phenomenon. People say it's the smells, the quiet.
They feel relaxed.
Bending down, you're getting things moving. Like, oh, what's this book? Oh, sorry. Oh God, I just went. No, I didn't. But anyway, it's a phenomenon, and so I'm not alone. Some people might see that as an affliction. I see it as a blessing.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone reads.
Yeah.
In the washroom. So
Yes.
That's a good point.
Oh my God, who knew that books are the new fiber?
Okay, so for many women on TikTok, 2025 is going to be the year that they are choosing to be meaner, apparently. It seems to have started with this creator who said, quote, I'm being meaner next year and learning to say no and to not be a people pleaser. So what do you think of this idea of vowing to be more mean or not people pleasing, or both?
Okay, so here's the thing, because I think not being a people pleaser is one thing, and saying you're mean is a totally different thing. But the way that I think they're connected is this is a gendered conversation. I don't know any man that's walking around saying, I'm gonna be meaner in 2025. Or a man who says, I'm not gonna be a people pleaser anymore. This is a uniquely female phenomenon, so there's something to unpack there. Secondarily, I think what she means is when a woman stands up for herself, other people could perceive her as mean.
Interesting.
Now, that's not a her problem, that's an us problem. And I will say that as a woman. You know, we always say things like, when a guy is assertive, he's assertive. When a woman is assertive, we call her mean or bossy. If a guy is confident, a woman being confident, she is a B. You know, there's all these words. But I'll tell you, raising a daughter, I'm a recovering people pleaser, okay? My mom's Filipino, and I'm gonna tell you something. We are the nicest people on the planet, but we also can perhaps be too much of people pleasers.
Yeah.
So we're trying to recover. I have a daughter, and this happened recently, so I want to tell this story because I think it illustrates how I'm trying to model what not being a people pleaser is. Because what is a people pleaser to me? Swallowing my discomfort to make sure you feel comfortable. And that ends. We were walking home, we were walking to the store one day, and there was this creepy old man who was standing under his apartment, and he says to my daughter, with me standing right next as we're walking, "Hey, little girl, was Santa good to you this Christmas?" And he said it in a very creepy way. And I stopped, my blood went up, and I said, "Sir, do you not find it very, very inappropriate that an old creepy man like you is talking to my daughter that way when I'm standing right here?" Boom, stunned in silence, right? Now, some people might perceive that as mean. I say, how dare you talk to a little girl with an adult standing right there in a very creepy way? Now, why did I do that? To model it for my daughter. So now I want to tell her, I don't care who it is, because little girls, we teach this to little girls young, let's stop it.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I agree that women should definitely, this is a gendered conversation, and that women do need to stop being people pleasers in many regards. I guess my worry is that it does end up being sometimes mean, and I think that men could actually learn a little bit from women in this regard. I think men get away with it, but I think that I would rather live in a world where people are trying a little bit harder to get curious about what someone's motivation is. Again, it kind of goes back to the first conversation. Is this person a repeat offender? You know, is this person doing the same thing over and over and over again? In which case, you do have to carve out boundaries. But what I'm hearing from, like, I have a friend who's a business owner, and she talks a lot about how she's just trying to make a business work, and people are just not showing up for shifts. And a lot of times they're just saying, like, I didn't feel like it today. And is that their form of being like, I won't be a people pleaser. I'm going to honor my needs first. Well, okay. And then I think about, you know, when it comes to, like, I had a point. What the hell? Oh yeah, just like, I think if you're working with, like, let's say a colleague who you're trying to be assertive towards, and it's being perceived even as mean because it has a bit of bite, wouldn't it be better if we turned it around and found another way, so we're not just creating more friction in the world, more meanness, and sending them off to go be an awful person out in the world? Like, I think we could all do with a bit of heart opening and softening, as opposed to more like wall building, and I'm trying not to swear.
My 2025 motto, which actually in a way links to people pleasing, because I'm a chronic people pleaser. Unfortunately, I want to enter recovery. So if you can create some sort of support
recovery
group,
program coming.
Okay, is 2025 assume positive intent.
That's great.
Because I people please. So actually, a friend of mine was telling me, okay, it's the same friend, I was rehearsing with her today. I had talked to her a lot about this today. So she unpacked something for me in that I'm a yes person. I put myself into new situations all the time, which means I'm meeting new people and building new relationships, which means this is maybe why I people please or come off as people pleasing, because I'm building new relationships, and I'm also potentially humble enough to know that I need to learn.
Right.
And so, but what has happened is, as also someone who just constantly is trying something new and being in new environments, I think I've exercised people pleasing a bit to the 10th degree, and it backfires. It's a double-edged sword where now I get mean, but not in a constructive, empowering way. I'll be like, people please. I'm always doing everything for everyone.
Yes.
And then, why aren't you doing this for me? And suddenly I crack.
Right.
And then I am mean.
Yeah.
And I am mean. And then I've fractured relationships, good, really important relationships, because suddenly I just flip over. And so I am now, this is why I have to assume positive intent and be like, just as much as I want to people please others, maybe I'm not the only one doing this. Maybe others are also actually
You're way
supporting
nicer
me.
than me.
Maybe it's my Canadian. Maybe it's the Canadian.
Way nicer than me.
Okay, listen to this. Maybe this is the year you vowed to pick up a low energy hobby. So a writer for Bustle says sometimes even the coziest hobbies like baking, knitting, or scrapbooking can seem like too much effort. So she suggests making a playlist or painting your nails, which I did last night actually. So what do you think of this idea, Megan?
I mean, I think painting your nails is not necessarily it's difficult, but so kudos to you for picking that. Twofold, I'll keep it short and sweet. I took that like comfort shows, right? When you get anxious, I think everyone identifies now that they have some comfort shows or
You've
they
seen them like 100 times.
Yeah.
You could recite them.
I lost my dad 3 years ago, and so that I just spit everywhere. I needed that to not think about the loss and the grief. And so I took it a bit too far where I can't fall asleep now without listening to Gilmore Girls. I know, but now I have a lot of things to recover from, but I was thinking about, I'm kind of over this hump and like it's been 3 years. And so where do I want to put my energy? Puzzles.
Puzzles. That's low energy. Puzzles is good.
I love a puzzle.
Yes.
But do you find this? There's a tipping point with puzzles, like 500 pieces max. If there are 1,000, then you can start to get just
We're
too
working
much.
on 1,000 and it's really stressful.
It's not-
really
it was very
stressful.
stressful. Yeah.
Puzzles here, that's lovely.
Are you doing, what's your low?
I haven't tried the puzzles, but do you know what it is recently? It's piano. When we moved to a house, we couldn't bring the piano from the apartment. So for Christmas, I got Simon one of those weighted key digital ones. And it's brought, because he missed it so much. But lo and behold, just this week, actually, just as soon as I get home, I go upstairs and the piano's in his office, and I just tinkle away and try to relearn this song that he taught me 3 years ago, and I don't remember how to do it. But it's so calming.
That's so nice.
I love that.
I don't really have a low, like, I don't actually even understand this story. Because if you're telling me that scrapbooking is high energy, I don't understand the concept. I just feel like, why can't we just normalize saying, I feel lazy and I don't want to do anything and not have to explain myself?
Now, that is it.
Embrace that in 2025.
Right? I'm like, why is everything low energy hobby, high energy hobby, hobby? How about I just want to lie in bed and look at the ceiling and it's okay.
I watch Gilmore Girls and that's okay
I do
too.
think though when you lie on the ceiling and look at like lying in bed and looking at the ceiling that we tend to doom scroll these days. So it's almost like we're not we're
Okay,
not
lock
not
up the
doing
phone. Lock up the phone. Lock
So
up the
maybe
phone.
like
Not with the phone.
Not with the phone.
Essentially, he's a low energy
That's
hobby.
right. That's right. Exactly. Welcome back to the show. Well, Jenna Dewan's written an essay for InStyle talking about how she has learned to lean into discomfort when she is facing big life transitions. We hear a lot about that now, just sort of lean into the difficulty. So, Megan, the idea of leaning into discomfort, are you comfortable with discomfort?
Yes, and I mean, it links to when I was talking about being a chronic people pleaser, how I really am a yes person. I put myself, just being here today, honestly, I put myself in situations that I've never been in, and I'm very excited. I don't know how this will come up, but I'm 40 years old. I've been around the sun like that for...
Girl, you're a baby on this panel. Don't you worry.
But I've been able to, like, over my career especially, try a lot of new things. So very open to discomfort. But I think one of the biggest things was when I got divorced. I was with my partner for 12 years, married for 3. We started dating right when I was 20. He was also my childhood crush.
Wow, okay.
Loved him.
Yeah.
And then he moved away, and then we reconnected, and before we knew it, I was walking down the aisle. But it was during my 20s, my most formative years, and as I turned 30 and my career was starting to take off, he wanted kids. And he had built a beautiful career over his 20s, and I was like, wait, it's my turn.
Yeah.
And also, unfortunately, we became roommates too. Like we weren't growing together anymore. And so I had to choose to leave a really beautiful, and he was a beautiful person. Like, so much so that I asked for a summer for myself, and he signed the lease to help me find space. Like, he was so supportive of me. But what was interesting is I felt, because I chose to leave, it was suddenly like, okay, you're not allowed to be sad. You're not allowed to grieve because you chose.
You chose this.
And so I felt suddenly so alone in my decision. And I also had a delusional phase where I was having a little bit too much fun. And so people would see that side of me and they wouldn't know that at home I was literally bawling. I was alone. I felt so confused. I used to have plans for every holiday.
So did you embrace it at the end of it? Did you embrace the discomfort?
So something that I've learned over the years is I have chapters. And that chapter was nothing lasts forever. And so those, like these little mottos come out of these somewhat traumatic or very traumatic experiences. Once was stress is a choice during university when I missed my first exam ever. And I was like, Megan, you're gonna survive this. And so I found that time. It really is, there's no solution, right? There's for a broken heart or for anything that you're going through, you just have to go through it. And I think for me, though, it was finding something to to hold on to and to understand, like, this was a moment. That's why I actually really liked this self-expansion and things happen for a reason. And maybe what are you gonna take away from this experience? And that's what I had to lean into in order to get to the other side.
Well, I want to let that follow because we said off the top that you created a community. You founded a community called the SAD Collective, and you say you believe in the power of vulnerability, which you have been very vulnerable with us on the show today. So thank you for sharing. So what is this, and how did this evolve?
Yeah, I mean, it actually did come out of when I was starting to recognize that maybe this relationship wasn't for me. So I always say it was born out of two broken hearts.
Aww.
But it evolved. It evolved very quickly into first, so my background is in media, and so it started as a storytelling community to create space for conversation about your mental health, to break down barriers, to help people share their stories. Then it evolved into programming. We did speed dating for a therapist, which is like our own thing where it's fun. It's this idea of how do we actually give you the resource of meeting a therapist, but also teach you, like, that first therapist might not be the right one for you.
That's great.
That's such a good note.
Great.
And then also, it was free access, and on top of that, it was fun. Speed dating for a therapist. And then that evolved into recognizing more gaps within the system, and one is accessibility to clinical support. And so we created SOFT grant. SOFT is SAD's opportunity for therapy, in which right now it's still in a pilot stage. We give this grant to a community organization, a grassroots organization that we've identified that helps their community, and they then can identify someone who's been struggling, because there's a lot of sensitivity in that. Hopefully we will get more funding and we can open applications, but right now we do that, and that $1,000 is for anyone who's facing systematic or financial barriers to accessing clinical support.
That is awesome. Well, Megan, thank you so much for everything that you do, for joining us, for being vulnerable with us also today. We really appreciate you being on the panel with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's tell you more about it. If you'd like more information on the SAD Collective, visit thesadcollective.com. It's on the screen right there, right now.
Subscribe to the Social Podcast so you don't miss a fiery debate. Until next time, socialites.